How well is your DJ music library organized? I know from first-hand experience just how tricky it can be to manage a large collection of music. Here are 5 essential tips that I think you need to know when it comes to managing music in Rekordbox DJ. Hi, my name's Jamie Hartley here from Crossfader, and I'm here to help you better manage your music library. If you're a Rekordbox DJ user, then this video should prove useful. I have 5 tips. Now, you don't have to use all 5. It might be a bit overkill to use all 5 at the same time when managing your music library, but Rekordbox is one of the most powerful pieces of DJ software, especially when it comes to your library management. So, in these 5 tips, you're going to learn how to better organize, how to tag music, how to access different things within the library options, and I just want to hear at the end which one of these 5 tips was your favorite, or which one you're going to start using now you've learned how to do it. Before we get stuck in, at the end of the video, if you need some help building your music library, we've got a free Crossfader music pack that you can download, which is full of tracks that are really good to get started with and help you practice your mixing. The first thing you're going to need to learn is how to manage the look and feel of the Rekordbox DJ software. So what I mean by that is there are a lot of different panels and options available to us, and you might not need to use them all. So knowing where they are is essential. In the Rekordbox preferences, you can click this gear icon here, and under the View tab, you can see all of these layout options. The tree view is on the left-hand side. You'll see as I tick and untick these options, various things appear and disappear. Now, iTunes, if you don't store music in iTunes, then you can get rid of it, for example. If you don't use the SoundCloud integration or the Beatport integration, you can get rid of them. This cleans up your workflow. I'm going to leave them there for now just so we don't leave anyone out. But be aware of the tree view options. Under that, we have playlist palette. I'm going to talk about playlist palettes later, so I'm going to leave this ticked, but if you decide not to use this tip, then you can leave that one unchecked later on in the tutorial. Coming out of the preferences, you also need to know how to adjust the view of your library. So here I'm in my entire collection, and each of these column headers can be changed. If you didn't already know, you can right click on any and you can choose any of these options. Now, if you have a look at my library, for example, I'm not that fussed about having album, so I can right click and just check album to make it disappear. I'm also maybe not that fussed about having the time, so I can right click anywhere and get rid of the time. Now obviously this is down to personal preference, but then you might see other options that you really want to have there. For example, if you don't have key shown up, then make sure you check key, because that's an important factor when it comes to DJing. Another one that I quite like is DJ play count. This shows you how many times a track has been played in your library. Now this is a fresh laptop for me, so don't be put off by the fact that not much of my library has been played. Next, you want to make use of the space that you have available. So each of these columns can be dragged bigger and smaller. You can even right click and go auto size this column, and it'll auto size it to the largest word to make sure there's enough room. Auto size all columns, and then you can drag left and right. I'm not that fussed about artwork, let's get rid of it. And I can drag left and right what's more important. So for example, if I wanted DJ play count at the start, I could do that there, and then I could toggle it to find my most popular tracks up at the top, and the ones I rarely play down at the bottom, and I can toggle between them. You can do this for each of the column headers, so if you want to work in BPM order, for example, you can do that here. Now if you've got key on your column headers, you might see something different to me. That's because I've got it showing in alphanumeric value. So jumping back into the preferences, I can go down from the view, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and the key format, key display format could be set on classic for yourself if it looks something like this. I've moved it to alphanumeric because if you're familiar at all with mixing in key, we have a separate tutorial for that, which you can click the link for. But if you're familiar at all with it, then I find this much easier to understand what will mix and key with one another. One of the great tips about Rekordbox though is it can suggest which will mix and key for you with a traffic light system. To activate this, all we need to do is click this master button here. When I click this, it will highlight in green anything that will theoretically mix in key with what is loaded as my master player. Now, here I have this Belfort UNI on the left-hand side, and you can see that master is checked. If I move to the other side, let me just move it to this one, you'll see that the green highlights change. There we go. And what it's doing is it's offering which are the best tracks to mix in key with the current master player. There are my essential tips when it comes to the view of your library and how to access, there's an extra tip in there really of how to access tracks that will work in key with one another, but you need to make sure that the columns are there in the first place before you can even check that option. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, what is this genre of music? How do you differentiate between different genres of music and then manage all those different genres in your DJ software? Now, don't get too caught up on what a particular genre of music is. When it comes to DJing, as long as you're familiar and you have some sort of organization around it, if you want to call something deep house and you put it in a deep house folder, then that's great. I think as long as you know where your songs are in your library, that's the main thing. And Rekordbox is powerful. You can do more than just create playlists. So in this tip, we're going to look at something called track tagging and then filtering. You can do more than just create, say, one playlist for one genre. You could tag a certain track with a genre, but then also tag it with other things as well. So let's take a closer look at tip number 2. Track tag options can be found here in Rekordbox. If we click this, we get another panel that opens up. Now, at the moment, there are some that are just standard. As you install Rekordbox, these different categories are already labeled, but you can add more. So if you have different genres that you play regularly, so let's say, for example, we might want something like EDM, or you might want hip hop. For example, you can just click that plus icon and keep adding them. You have a components category, a situation category, and then an untitled column where you can just add your own. You could literally create things like banger. If I can spell it, there. So you can have as much as you like in these tagging options. Now, you could go through, if you've already got a load of playlists, so I've got a house music playlist here, I could select all, and I could literally just tag it as, if I say it's deep house, tag them all as deep house. I could go in and go a bit further and say, okay, well, this is an indie track, and tag that individual one. This is a hip hop track, and tag that one. I could do more than just tag the genre. I could say this is a hip hop track that is also a main floor track, or I could say it's a main floor and a midnight track. So it's a perfect track to play in the middle of the night to get the crowd going. It's up to you what you want to categorize your music as and how deep you want to take this tagging. But it's very powerful because once you've tagged your music library, you can then open up this panel here, which is the track filter options. Now in here, you can choose whether you want to do it in the current playlist you're in, or you could go to your entire collection via this drop down. And then let me just get the filter options back up. And then you can filter your collection, for example, by different genres. So anything that we've tagged is highlighted here in the genre, and we can go hip hop. Obviously I've only tagged one just to show you for this tutorial, but it would show anything else in the hip hop tag. I could go out of that and say, okay, show me all my tech house tracks. Here we've got 2. Show me all my deep house tracks. Here we've got loads. Then you could go, okay, I've got deep house. I want to find all my deep house tracks that are in a certain key. So let's go through and choose different keys, and you can see different tracks appear. And then I could think, okay, there are 2 tracks there in deep house that are both 8A. Now those 2 tracks might work well together. This is starting to give you suggestions of what tracks you can put together in a mix. This is such a powerful tool, and you can take it much further because you can do things like look at fluctuations in the percent of the BPM. You could pick a specific BPM and really take it further. This is something to play with and find your own familiarity with it and find what works for you. If you've tagged lots, you can say I want deep house and something else, or we can say deep house or tech house that is 9A or 10A, and see what else comes up in your library. Then you can start mixing genres together that would work in key but aren't necessarily the same genre. So very, very powerful tools and very powerful stuff. Here's the track filter tab. And here is the track tagging tab. The next tip is great for if you're struggling for maybe what to play next, you're live playing in a nightclub or at a party and you just hit that brick wall of, I'm not sure what to play next. Rekordbox has a feature called related tracks, and beyond that, there is a related tracks tab, but what I like is the related tracks playlists. You can actually save rules, and then that becomes, it's like its own playlist that automatically populates as you build your library and do more with your music. It will start to bring in more suggestions. So let's take a closer look at tip number 3. The related tracks playlist, it can be found in the tree view down the left hand side. We can open it up here. There are a few that might be already in there that have been installed from Rekordbox. So for example, if we have a look at BPM and key, what we can do is look at the settings of that with this gear icon, and you can see all of these different rules that are checked. At the moment, this one just has BPM and key checked, and what it's doing is finding tracks within a 5% range of the current track that's playing. Also, it's finding tracks that will work in key. You have different related keys or the same key, so you can narrow that down if you want. If we press OK, now whatever track is currently on the master, you'll see when I change the master again, it uses those rules to find tracks in your collection that will match with it and match with those rules. This is great for giving you new suggestions of what to play next. I've got another one here that is same artist, for example. So if you're on a roll with a certain artist and you want to do some sort of like mini mix, you could quickly find all the other tracks from that same artist that's currently loaded in the player. There's a folder here as well called Track Suggestion. Now this is pretty cool. If we open this up, you can see there's era, mood, and association. So association is things like tracks with similar artists or labels and things that are kind of associated to the track you're currently playing. You've got mood, again, tracks within a similar mood, a similar vibe. It might look at the BPM and the key information and pick up tracks that will work with the one that's currently in the master. Or era, this is ones that are close to the year of release. So if you've got tracks in your library that are tagged properly with the year it's been released, you can then maybe be playing to a crowd and you're playing throwbacks and you think, I need to play more tracks from this era because the crowd are responding. So you can jump in that playlist and find loads of tracks nice and quickly, as long as they're tagged and as long as the files have that information in them. You know, if you're purchasing your music legally, which I hope you are, it will have that information. So that's a really useful tool to jump in there, especially for any wedding DJs or open format DJs that are playing to a very wide range of audiences. Beyond that, we can actually make our own related tracks rules and playlists. So if you right click on related tracks, you can create a new related tracks. You could choose different categories, so you could say everything within a 5 BPM range that was added in the last 60 days, so it's all your latest music that you've added to your library, and you press OK and it brings up all the tracks that are relevant to those search criteria. Then what you could do is create a playlist out of that if you wanted. If you think, okay, well I want that exact rule, those exact rules and those tracks that have been found in a playlist that won't change, you can then right click and go create, turn the related tracks into a playlist. To make it appear, I've just had to quickly hide and then show the playlist again. You'll see it's down at the bottom, and then you've got all those tracks there, they're not going anywhere. Because the related tracks, as you add more to your library and as 60 days, for example, rolls over, all the tracks that are 61 days old will be removed, and all the tracks that are the latest ones you've downloaded will be added automatically without you having to do anything, which is great. This next tip is a really quick one, but it's one of those things that we can simplify Rekordbox right down. If you're a DJ that has some go-to playlists that you find you're always jumping into, but they're lost in 30 different playlists, for example, and you keep having to scroll up and down to find that one of the club bangers, what you can do is drag this into what you call a palette playlist. Let me show you. Tip number 4, let's take a look. You'll notice along the top of the library here we have these things called blank lists, and if I tick them, if I click on them, nothing really happens because they're empty. If you can't see this panel, just go back to your gear icon, go down to the layout and make sure you've got playlist palette selected, and that's this palette here. Then you can do something as simple as drag a playlist onto a palette, and when you click it, it will jump as a shortcut to that playlist. You can then organize that playlist in different ways. You can sort it by track order or track title, or you can remove it from the palette. So this is a really good thing to just have some of your top playlists added to the palette along here. There are different tabs as well that you can scroll through, so there are 3 separate tabs to access different palettes. This toggle here actually shows and hides the palettes themselves, so you don't have to necessarily click a palette if you want to just show those different categories that you've dragged in there. So I could be in Tech House as my normal playlist, but then I could be looking at this ADE playlist as well, and I could have all different ones up there, maybe some of my favorite ones, to always access and scroll through all at once. This last tip is one where you can get Rekordbox to automate something for you and automate that creation of playlists. I know how frustrating it can be when you go on a big download spree, you get lots of new music, and then you've got to go through and organize it all and drag it into different playlists. So this one is called intelligent playlists. And you can set rules just like the related tracks, but these are specific playlists. And you can set rules that then you apply, and when new tracks get added to your collection, it filters them through the rules and will automatically add them to a playlist that those rules apply to. So let's take a look. On the playlist tab, just right click and you can create a new intelligent playlist. Again, this is similar in a way to the related tracks, but you can create different conditions. So if I say, for example, again, I want them to match a certain BPM range, I could say I want it to be greater than 120 BPM, and then I can add another rule that is the BPM and it's less than 130 BPM, for example. Now, when I press OK, it'll bring all my tracks that are between 120 and 130 BPM. I could add more to that, so let's right click and edit the intelligent playlist. I could also say that I want it to be of a certain key. So I could say equals 4A. And there we go, they're all the tracks between those BPMs in that same key. So now as you add new music to your library, it'll automatically look at the information and add it to that playlist if it fits. This is really, really useful for things like, I like to automate BPM ranges. So if you're a DJ that has lots of different BPM ranges, you could have, for example, 120 to 130, 130 to 140 BPM, 190 to 100 BPM, 100 to 110, and have it in 10 BPM segments. And then you could even go further and say, all right, I want all of my different keys of my most popular genres. So you could have, if you've tagged the genres, you could say everything in house music that is 4A, everything in house music that is 5A, everything in house music that's 6A, and then you can quickly go in there and find all of that style of music in that certain key, and you don't have to then add new music to that playlist because it's intelligent, it does it for you. So there you have it. As you can see, Rekordbox is one of the most powerful tools for managing DJs' music libraries. I hope that you've learned some new tips in this tutorial. Now, one of my biggest tips is don't try and do it all, because you'll get too caught up in the music prep and management and not enough DJing. So balance it. You know, as you're DJing, if you think, this is worth tagging, or this is worth, creating a related playlist around, then go for it. But don't spend all your time managing music and not enough time DJing. It's got to be half and half. Please let me know in the comments below which of these tips was your favorite, or which one you maybe didn't know and are going to start using. As promised, if you want some help building your music library, you can download our free Crossfader music pack. Just click the link to sign up and you can get a free download. These tracks are perfect for starting out, practicing and getting used to mixing, and it will also help you practice some of these music management tips as well. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe and do all that good stuff to help